What is up, guys? Jordan here with the Deck Box, coming back to you today with a little bit of a discussion about the upcoming St. Louis Regionals. I know there have been a few different, cards that people are talking about that maybe you should consider putting in your list, despite what list it is. And mainly the first one that we're going to talk about is one that is probably the most common that people are talking about, is the GIRATINA promo. And it disappeared. Alright, so if you don't know what the GIRATINA promo does, essentially the main reason to play it is for the ability to devour light. Each Pokemon break has no abilities. This includes abilities of its previous evolution. So I'm just going to go out there and just give my opinion. Overall, to the answer, should I play GIRATINA promo? Overall, I would say yes, you should. A few reasons. One, Greninja it's placed very well. It pretty much always has been, but it seems like it keeps getting better and better with different pieces. I know people are saying it's better with Cynthia. You have that shuffle draw. It's a lot better than having to discard things. You don't have to dump resources you need. Then I know that some people are messing around with Cyrus Prism Star, which honestly, if there was a deck that Cyrus I could see working really well with, it would be Greninja, because you can get rid of 3 of their Pokemon on the bench and then use the giant water shurikens to potentially take out another, and then take out their active, or whatever, and they're down to 1 or 2 Pokemon left. So I could definitely see Greninja being placed very, very well for that reason. Another side option, this isn't a super popular deck, but I know that the Luxio deck, it's mainly Luxio, but it does play Luxray as well. Some people are taking in the break option. Well, if you put this guy out, then the Luxray loses its ability to have that 30 extra HP, which makes a big difference. Kind of a minor reason, but it's just another reason to play it. But mainly you'd play it for Greninja. So the reason I would say to play it is because if someone were to come to you and say that, hey, if you play, let's just give an example, if you play these 3 or 4 cards, you have a free win against this deck every single time you play it. Most people in their right mind would say, okay, that's a really good reason, I'll play those 3 or 4 cards. This is 1 card, and for some reason people seem to have a tough time of finding the space for it. I get it, lists are tight right now, I totally get that. And there's a lot of players who are high enough caliber that they probably don't have to play this, or the deck doesn't warrant it. Some decks aren't as susceptible to Greninja, so I can understand that. And for the high level players, this discussion's maybe not for them. Some of them still would play it because it's a free win. They don't need to worry about it, and their deck just doesn't do well against Greninja. So if they can put Giratina out there, it can win for them. And I've played matches against Greninja with lists that play Giratina, and it's beautiful. You don't have to worry about, oh man, what if they get their giant water shuriken? What if this? What if that? You don't have to worry about it. It essentially turns Greninja into a theme deck. Now it's still a theme deck that you have to 2-shot, but it doesn't have its ability, which is one of the main factors of the deck. And at the same time, Greninja can shut down your abilities with one of its attacks, Shadow Stitching. And so I kind of look at it and say, what, if I can't have my abilities, you can't have yours either. Let's just even the playing field. So to a level, it evens the playing field, but then to another level, it makes your deck leaps and bounds better than theirs, because you're taking away the core of their deck, whereas they're probably not taking away the core of yours by using Shadow Stitching, and they're poking you for 40, maybe 70 with a Choice Band, whereas you're probably going to be hitting them for a lot bigger numbers. So that is why I would say overall to play Giratina. Now real quick, I'm going to go through a few of the lists that we've discussed on this channel recently and show you kind of where I would place Giratina, because I know that's the big question is, well, what do I cut to make it work? So I'm going to give a few options for each of these decks. Take them or leave them, that's fine. I just think it might be good for some people and helpful for them to see, okay, well, what am I supposed to cut? What can I live without? So we're going to start off with the Duskmane Magnezone list that we did a PowerPoint feature of it. I haven't had a chance to do it on PTCGO yet. As you see, I'm still missing my Duskmane Necrozmas, so hit me up if you have extras. So anyway, so hopping into this list, there's probably a few options in this list I would cut, which is good. That means the list is loose enough to kind of have some wiggle room to mess with. I would not mess with any of our supporter line. That is something I would stays the same. So first option, obviously, we have Energy Reset. This is a tech card, but it's honestly a tech card I personally would not cut because it allows you to do really fancy things with Dialga GX's GX attack. You know, you can use his attack, then you're not going to need him after that, so you can use this card to get all 5 of your energies off of there, and then you'll have Magnezone. You can place those energies elsewhere. So some people, you know, if you don't need this card, I would say cut it. But if you're like me and you see the strong advantage of using that, I would say hold on to it. Overall, I would say hold on to it. It makes Max Potion stronger, and it, like I said, it helps you with that GX attack to preserve some energy. Next, you could cut Heavy Ball. You don't necessarily need Heavy Ball in this because you're okay with energies being dumped into the discard pile. So Ultra Ball is just as good because you do have Mount Coronet to get energies back. So Heavy Ball is definitely an option that you could cut and easily just fit your Giratina right into that slot because Heavy Ball is not winning you any matches. It helps, you know, helps you kind of preserve some things, but I could easily see swapping Heavy Ball for a card like Giratina that does win you matches. There's always the option to cut 1 Max Elixir. I've seen a lot of lists recently that do only run 3 Max Elixir, which is completely fine. After using 4, you're probably going to be through most of your energy with this list anyway, because you are using Magnezone to speed through your energy, so as you draw them, you're able to place them down, no problems. So I could see cutting one of those. Honestly, my personal choice for a cut would be to cut 1 Max Potion. This is a list that, despite having some tankiness, it still isn't like 200 plus HP. So you're not always going to have the chance to use Max Potion. You're going to go up against decks that are going to one-shot you. Really, the only reason that we play Max Potion is there are a lot of 2-shot decks, and we're okay with getting rid of our energy because we can accelerate it back on. So that's why we play 2 now. But this would be my choice if I was playing this list. I would cut 1 Max Potion to slide a Giratina in there. Again, Max Potion probably won't win you any matches. I mean, actually, it could win you matches, but it's more of a preservation. Then for some simpler options would be to cut 1 Cosmog, just to do a 1-0-1 lineup, so Galio GX. You don't need that to switch in. You use it for the switch in and out mostly, but also has a great attack and a great GX attack to set up if for some reason you're really desperate and need it. It can bring you back into a game, and that's why I play 2 Cosmog, because people usually, if they see a Cosmog, they're going to take it out. But you know, that's not the core of your deck. This over here, this chunk from Dialga to Solgaleo Prism Star, that's your core. Solgaleo is just kind of a tech in there. So I could see cutting a Cosmog, or even cutting 1 energy going down to 10 because you are able to cycle through it. But like I said, my easy option would be to cut the 1 Max Potion. So we'll get out of that list. Let's move on down to we'll look at Garchomp, and I've actually already tweaked. Oh, come on! I've already tweaked Garchomp, and actually made a couple other tweaks that we'll talk about while we're in here. So I've placed Giratina in here already, and let me go back to the original list so I can have a reference point of where things were tweaked. See if I can properly do this. Okay, so one thing that I know I cut, I made a few tweaks in the list, so I will say that in advance, but one thing I know I cut down specifically to get the Giratina in was 1 Pal Pad. It was such an easy drop to drop 1 Pal Pad, because we do play 4 puzzles in here, so we could always use puzzles to get Pal Pad back, or use puzzles to do exactly what Pal Pad did. I would disagree with those that say we don't need both. Sometimes I need my puzzles for something else. So that's why I still include the 1 Pal Pad, but cutting 1 was okay, because like I said, I can use puzzles to get it back very easily. But real quick, let's hop over to the second version of the deck so I can show you all the tweaks made since that video was done, just to kind of help the overall matchup. So like I said, we cut a Pal Pad, really easy drop there. Then we did take out Floatstone for a skateboard. This was something that a few people mentioned to me. after the video went out. Really, the only reason I was playing Floatstone is because then Lycanroc has completely free retreat. But I definitely saw the merit in a skateboard. I've had matchups where I did get locked in place because I couldn't get out of sleep or paralysis, whatever. So skateboard was definitely much better. I haven't had any issues since I put a skateboard in there. If I have Lycanroc out there, I'm usually okay with him being in the active because I can probably swing with him, no problem. But you see, like I said, I've put the Giratina in place of the Pal Pad. Then I've also cut one Gizmo. I've added 2 counter catchers. So let's see, I cut one Gizmo, and I cut something else to fit in a second counter catcher. It may have been a rare candy. I can't remember if I ran 4 before or not. But yeah, you can kind of see some of the tweaks that have been made. The main part of this discussion, though, is the Giratina promo being placed in there in place of a Pal Pad. Very easy cut, not a big issue. I could also see you cutting multi-switch. I would not personally, because I've seen how strong multi-switch can be, especially in this list. But you could very easily cut that. You could very easily cut an N. You're not going to use N often. And like I said, you always have puzzles to get it back if you really want to. But as usual, I don't like to tweak with my supporter line too much because it's pretty critical. This deck's a little bit looser on the outside supporters besides Cynthia because you're going to be using Cynthia most of the time. So that's kind of the tweaks I've made to that list. Then, and by the way, of any deck that would need a Giratina promo, this deck needs a Giratina promo. The strength of the deck is that it can survive 2 prize decks because it is a 1 prize. When you face off against another 1 prize deck, particularly Greninja, you're in a lot of trouble because if for some reason you're only, let's say you have 2 Garchomp out, one of them is going to get knocked out, okay? They're going to be able to use a couple Giant Water Shurikens and Pokia, get rid of your abilities for that turn. They've taken a knockout, and now you're stuck. Maybe you have 1 Garchomp left. Well, you're going to want to start setting up more Garchomp, but you can't. You got 50 HP Gibble. It doesn't work. Even if you were to put it out there, attach an energy, put it into the active, and Ascension, you get 80 HP with your Gabite. All they have to do is a Giant Water Shuriken and a Poke. Or 2 Giant Water Shurikens, and then they can poke the next thing that comes in the active. So this deck it has so much evolving, and because of the evolving, you need to have Giratina to shut off that ability. I played against it yesterday. It made a big difference. It made a huge difference. The only one that can survive a hit would be Riolu, and that's not really a big deal because Lucario's not going to do that great against Greninja. 2 Giant Water Shurikens takes down a Lucario, which is not hard for a Greninja deck to hit, especially if it's set up. So, like I said, if any deck needs Giratina promo, Garchomp needs Giratina promo. Moving on down, we have Glaceon Decidueye. This is one of my favorite decks right now. This is one that I could see you not including Giratina promo, if I'm being honest. But as per usual, there's lots of evolving in the deck. So to me, if you're wanting to set up your Decidueye and you can't do it just right, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And again, they're going to shut off your abilities, so you might as well shut off their abilities and kind of even the playing field. So in this list, let me think here. If I were to cut anything in this list, I would say either cut, and this is a tight list. It is a tight list, I will say that. I would say either cut 1 N, 1 Sycamore, or maybe a Water Energy. My main cut would probably be a Sycamore. I don't use it a lot in this list. I don't like to dump a lot of these resources. So I would say an N or a Sycamore would probably be the 2, but mainly a Sycamore. Really avoid Water Energy. This deck, I know you can hit weakness with Decidueye, but you only run 2 unit energy, so it's going to be tough to kind of get that where you need it to be. And you can take some nice knockouts with Glaceon, but it all kind of hinges on Decidueye's ability, which Greninja is going to shut it down. He knows to shut it down, he's going to. So I would definitely find a place for Giratina, like I said, if for nothing but to even the playing field in your matchups. And sorry, I know my washing machine just kicked up in the background. If you guys can hear that, I apologize. Let's see. I think those are the main ones. Oh, you know what? One I wanted to look at was Kickabulu. Okay, so this is a list that I went through a while ago, and I was thinking about it because I was like, Bulu hits weakness. Okay, so it never has to really get rid of its energy. So, do I really need Giratina promo in a Vikabulu list? Mainly Kickabulu is the one I'm looking at, just for example. This would be a list, honestly, that I would say, no, you don't need Giratina promo. But, as with any of the other lists, I would strongly suggest just play one. If you didn't already have the win, if for some reason things don't set up just right for you, you're going to slow them down too. It's 3 giant water shurikens to a Bulu. You can only use that GX attack once. So, personally for me, I would try to find a spot for it. You could very easily cut a Gizmo out of this. It's got 4 in there already. You could cut it down to 3. I mean, that would easily be my cut. Would just be the 1 Gizmo and then slide in a Giratina promo. Like I said, this is one of those lists that people look at and go, well, it doesn't need a Giratina promo. Well, no, it doesn't need it. But if I can take my match and just step it that much further, might as well. And like I said, you're going to be slowly setting up your Bulu depending on how fast you get your Vikavolt set up. If you get Vikavolt turn 2, you're fine. You'll have your ability long enough to set up 1 Bulu, and then you'll be able to take easy one-shots without having to discard energy. But if you don't get your Vikavolt set up quickly enough, you're going to be manually attaching energy to Bulu, and you don't want them to be set up faster with their Greninja breaks hitting you with Giant Water Shuriken, because they can easily take down a Bulu with Giant Water Shurikens. And I'd hate to see you lose an auto win because of something like that. If you can just really shore up your match, I say do it. It doesn't hurt you, especially, like I said, if you're not one of these top tier players, if you're not the Tord Reklos or the Michael Pramawats of the world, consider playing Giratina promo. And I promise you, at one point or another, they've played Giratina promo, and it's made a difference for them. So really, you just kind of got to know your matchups. Like I said, something like a Vikabulu doesn't need it, but all these other evolving decks for sure need it. And those evolving decks, I mean, they're kind of everywhere right now. So it's something you're probably going to be playing. The next thing I wanted to talk about that I think is pretty important, I'm starting to hear a lot of people consider playing Garbodor again, shutting down abilities. So what does that mean for our current format, where everyone's taken their field blowers and chopped it down to 1, maybe 2 if they're they have the space for it, but most of them run just the 1, and we don't really look at the potential of using it against a Garbodor, because we haven't seen any Garbodor for so long. So at the same time, while we're trying to fit Giratina promo, we're also considering, do I make more room for field blower? I would say if your deck runs abilities and is kind of relying on abilities, I'd say absolutely. I'd say find a way to bump your field blower count by 1. So real quick, with all the lists, whatever cuts I mentioned, it's the same cuts I would make for a field blower. This list would be pretty easy. Maybe cut out the heavy ball and a Cosmog, or actually a heavy ball and max potion is what I would cut, so I could fit Giratina and 1 more field blower. Because Magnezone's ability is really, really strong. With the Decidueye list, again, very tight. Maybe cut a Sycamore and an Energy. I wouldn't cut a Sycamore and an N, because that's 2 draw supporters at once. So maybe try to find room in there somewhere to fit another field blower, because again, your abilities are crucial, especially in that matchup, because you can hit just the right numbers with 2 feather arrows and a hit from Glaceon. So, I mean, you know your list, and that is another suggestion I would make before if you're coming to St. Louis and you're testing. Hopefully you're testing, but whatever list you come to and decide to play, just know your list. Please know your list. Know how it goes against other decks. Know your matchups. That's what I would say, because if you don't know that stuff, you're gonna be in a really bad spot no matter what 60 cards you play. if you don't make these tweaks like I've mentioned, the Giratina, the field blower, then I would say know your outs. You know, if you're not playing those things, how are you going to beat those decks? And if you have a way to beat those decks without those cards, go for it. That's awesome. That means you've really done your testing and you've known how to figure that out. Maybe you know, hey, I don't need that. That's fine. That's good. That's what I would say with all these tweaks I'm talking about. The last thing, real quick, you know, since we've gone through the list, I'm not going to keep going through them. Just whatever tweaks I mentioned originally, that's what I would say for these other tweaks going forward. The next thing to consider. So we have decks. Really, the main two I'm thinking of is this one with Dustmane and Magnezone and Vikabulu lists. Okay, these are lists that run Stage 2 support. They're not Stage 2 main attackers or like cores of the deck, like Decidueye. You always include Dartrix in there. A couple. With Garchomp, you include Gabites in there because you need those for your matchup. So if you don't get a rare candy, you can lay down the Stage 1. But you do have matchups, or decks rather, like Dustmane, like Vikabulu, that run this Stage 2 support. And the Stage 2 support, of course, is Magnezone. And in this deck also, Solgaleo GX. And then in Vikabulu, you run Vikavolt. And typically, people just skip the Stage 1 in those. They say it's support. We're going to get our rare candy for it. It's not, you know, we're not going to sit around waiting for our Stage 1 to go into Stage 2. I would suggest possibly changing that because, and this isn't like a huge change. You know, it's not something that I would suggest 100% to change because I don't think the deck is going to be that prevalent. But I promise you, some people will play the new Luxio deck with a little bit of item lock. And that will just suck if that's a list you lose to because you didn't include a Stage 1. Because, like I said, it shuts down items, so you won't be able to use rare candy. So they're going to slow you down a bit. Like I said, that's not one change that I would 100% say make because I'm not, you know, we don't know the presence of Luxio at this point. We don't know how strong it's going to be there. You know, it's not going to be a lot of players. You might not even run into it. That's how small of a presence I think it'll have. But if that's a matchup that you feel uncomfortable with, losing your items, I mean, this deck in particular, Max Elixirs, Energy Reset, Rare Candy, you know, all the search cards, those are all items you're going to be losing them. So I would say if you feel uncomfortable with that matchup and you feel like, hey, you know, I don't want to get locked out of my items and then not be able to have my support, I would say find a way to include the Stage 1 Pokemon. Just one. You don't have to include the same amount. You know, in Vikabulu, I think it's a 303 line. Maybe toss in one Charjabug. In this list, it's a 202 line. I would say toss in one Magneton, excuse me. And again, it's kind of the same tweaks I mentioned before, same cards I would cut. But again, just kind of know your matchups. If you feel 100% comfortable with Luxio, you know, I can do it without my Magnezone, that's fine. You know, more power to you. If you don't feel comfortable with it, I know there's players that don't, then find a way to include it. And again, your list is probably not going to be the exact same 60 IUs, and that's fine. If it's not, know what cards you can afford to cut. But at the same time, make sure that every single card has a purpose. Don't include cards just for the sake of including them. And make sure that if you do include a card, it's to help you in matchups. Giratina, for example, it's going to get you a win against Greninja. Field Blower is going to help you against Garbodor. Adding the Stage 1 could help you against this item lock deck. Just little considerations to make. Really, all I'm trying to do is just get your brains churning a little bit for this upcoming weekend. It's going to be a great weekend. I'm going to be there. A lot of my friends are going to be there. I think they've hit over 900 Masters so far, so it's looking to be a really exciting weekend. And I want you guys to enjoy your weekend. And of course, part of enjoying your weekend is winning your matches. So just take your deck, whatever deck you choose, go through it piece by piece, and say, do I need to include anything else? What's going to help me in these various matchups, and how can I make space for it? So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it's been helpful. I know it's something that, like I said, I've been thinking about a little bit, and I'll have to go back and look at my list to make some tweaks. But if you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave that like down at the bottom there. Leave a comment if you have any additional tweaks that you would say make, or that you would say to make for various matchups. Maybe there's some you thought of that I haven't. And as usual, if you have not yet subscribed, please be sure to do that. That we can get the notifications on when new videos are coming out, and really helps the channel to grow a lot. And I would say share this video with your friends that will be going to St. Louis, or any other tournaments coming up shortly. I just know St. Louis is probably the closest one. But be sure to share this with them. I'm pretty sure it could help them as well to sit down and look at their decks and think things through. So guys, as usual, I have been Jordan with the Deck Box, where we want to know what's in your box. Have a great day, guys.